Welcome to Age of Empires 4. If you pull off a perfect start, you might actually end up being a few seconds ahead of your opponent, and a few seconds are all that it could take to win the game. So let's get the opening done correctly, shall we? Before you even get into a game, start thinking about this. You're going to click your town center, you're going to build villagers, you're going to click your villagers, and you're going to kill a sheep. That's the stuff you want to be thinking about as the game is loading up, because the faster you do that, you might save a second. H. Shift Q, select villagers, kill the sheep. Now you're going to select your scout next, and you're going to gather the 2 sheep near your town center. Your town center, you're going to queue it up to be next to that gold mine, because the first villager is going to be building mining camp. Gather your sheep, bring them back to the town center with your scout. Have your scout find more sheep. You usually get around 5 to 7 sheep near your start. Second villager is going to build a house and then go to the mine. In this game, there's such a thing as shift queuing actions, which is useful, so that you can save your attention elsewhere. I built the house, and then I'm going to shift right click this. In a similar way, my scout is going right click here, shift right click here, shift right click here, so that I don't have to baby the scout as it moves around. You'll notice that I separated out my villagers so that they are killing the sheep one at a time. This is useful because then after killing a sheep, after finishing a sheep pile, the villagers don't all stand up and go kill the next sheep together. This saves you a second here or there. In this game, the meat on the ground does not rot. Make sure that you're constantly building those villagers, and as your scout comes in with sheep's number 5 through 7, somewhere in that, this is the point where your scout's going to go to the opponent's base, so you can see what they're doing. And perhaps, as early as this, you can start plotting what you're going to do as you tech to Tier 2, as you tech to Feudal Age. This is a very consistent opening, which requires minimal amounts of clicks, which is why I'm guiding you on this particular thing. Very simple. You build the mining camp, you build the house, only 2 buildings, 2 guys on gold, and then everything else on food. Very consistently gets you up to the landmark at just before 2:30, so as this timer clicks there, as you get to 200 gold, you should be ready to build that landmark, and bam. Always comes in just around 2:30. Now, as you're going up to Feudal Age, every civ is going to do the next thing a little bit different, but most are going to need a lumber camp, start gathering wood, because you're going to need to start building more building. English in particular are going to need a little bit more wood because they have a council hall, and my plan for the English is to start off with a small longbowman poke, where I build 5 longbowmen and then poke the opponent with them. It's part scout, part harassment. Sometimes it can go further, or sometimes it can win you the game if you're up against an opponent that's not good enough. Sometimes you may want to skip it because you scout them and you see like, oh, there's no vulnerabilities, there's no point to building longbowmen. But that's just how games evolve. You have to use scouting information to decide, and make sure you keep your villager supply going, make sure you keep your house supply going. One of the key parts to look at is where is the opponent's gold? Because that's probably their more vulnerable spot going into the Feudal Age. And looks like it's here. Looks like it's a little bit far away from their town center. It looks like you might be able to slide some guys behind and kill a few villagers, possibly. So there's a few variations on what to do once you get to Age 2. Perhaps you're planning on fast expanding, perhaps you're planning on doing a middle-of-the-road strategy so that you can be flexible, perhaps you're planning to just all-in your opponent. If you're English, you certainly could just keep building longbowmen until your opponent dies. and not really plan on doing stuff. Of course, no matter what your strategy is, though, you should just keep building villagers constantly. So always just keep clicking your town center obsessively, and then build your villagers, make sure they're in production. And while you're attacking up, you also want to be thinking about what your next plan is. I'm going to go for a town center, so it's a bit of a cross between a fast expand and the middle ground. Furthermore, this should have been done while you were attacking up as well. You want to start planning on what your next source of food is after the sheep. Ideally it's deer, but there seem to be no deer around this particular camp, so I'm going for the berries instead. Deer produce food faster than the berries, so deer are ideal, and these are a little bit too far away. So I'm only building 5 longbowmen. The reason for that is because 2 volleys of longbowman shots, or archer shots in general, kill a villager. If you're playing a civ other than the English, then you'll build an archery range first and then build 5 archers. Nearly the same build. So, you noted in your opening scout what might be a vulnerable spot for these 5 archers to poke at. So you're going to send your archers in that way. Helps to have your scout around as well, to see if there's something that could kill your archers in the way, to see if you shouldn't attack. But in this case, everything gets the all clear, let's say, and you're going in. In the meantime, make sure your base is operational and working towards what you want it to. In this case, I am aiming to build a town center behind this attack. No, something happened that's very fortunate. There seems to be a vulnerable building in the way. So, as you can see, 2 volleys kill a villager. One. Move up. 2. Any amount of villagers you can kill will help you out a lot, because those villagers sure produce a lot of resources. You're going to build a town center under this particular build, but again, so many variations. Perhaps you go gold to go castle age faster. Perhaps you build another barrack so you can push all in. Perhaps you've consistently built longbowmen during this time. But yeah, that's the opening. So many different ways you could go, but you did it well at the beginning, and hopefully you have an advantage going into the early middle game as a result.